Well, happy Monday, everybody. Long time no see, by the way. So I decided to take a little social media sabbatical to get my mind right. You know, with the pandemic and everything happening in politics, there's stuff you just can't control, which leads me to today's discussion. It's about managing stress. Why? Why is this so important? Because if you don't manage your stress, it's going to affect your dog. I've said this time and time again, that dogs are constantly reading our body language and they're adjusting their behavior based on our present state of mind, right? So if you typically train and you're positive, when you're overloaded with stress, whether it's post-traumatic stress related stuff, let's face it, if you're in law enforcement or the military, that is a very good possibility that you're dealing with some post-traumatic stress symptoms and you just don't know it, you haven't been diagnosed. So when certain things happen or take place, whether you have a level of post-traumatic stress or not, just being under a load of continual stress and anxiety is going to have an impact on your brain. And interesting enough, so for those of you that don't know, my experiences, my buddy was shot and killed about 10 feet from me. It was something I couldn't control. I had to run out and grab him. I was covered head to toe in just all kinds of nastiness. And I had to stay in that skin-covered outfit for a couple days. Like, I didn't get to shower because, you know, we had to meet with a bunch of people for debriefing and all sorts of other things. But it's hard for me because I couldn't control anything, right? And so the interesting thing, I'm going to share some personal information here to help other people out. But what recently came out for me in my therapy sessions through VA was this. There's this term when we talk about dissociative disorders. So this happens typically if you're diagnosed with post-traumatic stress. In other words, people look, you don't get post-traumatic stress from falling off a chair at work. Like, you know, I think that there's so many people that use that term lightly, but then there's veterans like myself and guys that have been through way more than I ever have. Like, there's some really serious post-traumatic stress cases, and people are like, well, I went to the store the other day and it was really busy. Man, I have post-traumatic stress from that. No, you don't. It's called anxiety. It's completely different than post-traumatic stress. But I wanted to post this video because I've taken like 2.5 weeks off from doing my podcast, doing these videos or whatnot. And I found it very therapeutic to just unplug. For those of you that follow us, you notice I've done very little on Facebook. I might check in once a day, maybe do 2 thumb scrolls, and then I'm off because I can feel that anxiety coming up because there's just so much in the world that I can't control. So there's a massive difference between post-traumatic stress and other anxiety disorders. And I want to talk about this depersonalization or derealization disorder, which is a part of the dissociative disorders. Because I wonder, as I talk to canine handlers from both law enforcement and military, and as I ask probing questions when we're trying to get to the bottom of their dog problems, you know what I find out? Most of the time, the handler is under a mass amount of stress and anxiety. So I feel it's very relevant to have a little class on this stuff because it could be you. If you're watching, you could be dealing with this. And there's only one way to fix it, is to have the knowledge that it exists and the knowledge that you kind of meet the symptoms. Now, I'm not saying I would always recommend going to therapy, but let's face it, in the law enforcement and military world, sometimes that's challenging to do. Some people are getting some backlash for admitting that they're having some struggles. They're getting made fun of. They're getting pushed to the side. I talked to one officer. He mentioned that he went to his command and said, hey, man, I'm having nightmares of these dead babies that, you know, I had to deal with. And I'm mowing the lawn. I'm seeing them on the lawn. And he goes, Brian, I'll tell you what, I got thrown under the bus. I mean, it leaked out that I was struggling mentally, and he got called to like a domestic, no backup showed. Nobody wanted to back him up. And I think that that's absolutely ridiculous. We need to deal with these issues so that we can have the most reliable canine team out there, right? So I'm not going to cover everything because, my book is huge and there's a lot to this. So I'm going to just give you a general idea of what I'm getting at, right? So this is what I've been dealing with personally. And I'm kind of using myself as an example to have the guts to go public and say, hey, I've been diagnosed with post-traumatic stress. This is what I'm dealing with. And I hope that empowers some of you to stand up for yourself and get the healing that you need. So, okay, as described above, depersonalization or derealization disorder involves a disconcerting and disruptive sense of detachment from oneself or surroundings. Depersonalization is defined by a sense of being detached from oneself. Derealization is defined by a sense of detachment from one's surroundings, such as the surroundings seem unreal. And how this came about is I was talking to my therapist and I said, sometimes I feel like I wake up and, if I had a lot of broken sleep due to nightmares or reliving some of the traumatic things that I experienced, whether it was in law enforcement or whether or not it was in the military, I wake up and I don't feel like I'm me. It's almost like I'm like I'm on the outside looking at myself. And nothing seems real. I feel like I'm in a dream world. And she said, well, that's derealization. You're detaching from your environment because here's the interesting thing about our bodies. Our bodies are made to regenerate. You cut your finger, what happens? It heals itself, right? And as I'm studying psychology and as I'm going through therapy, what I'm learning is our brain is no different. Our brain says, hey man, you got stuff that you never found resolution for, and it brings it to the surface over time. So some people, it can take 20 years for the brain to decide, hey, you need to make sense of this and you need to find some peace in this situation, right? I'll never forget one of my counselors through the VA. I told him, I said, when I was first diagnosed with post-traumatic stress, I'm like, man, it wasn't like I was in Vietnam watching my whole platoon get killed or some of these guys coming back from Iraq and Afghanistan that has had situations way worse than mine. Like, I don't feel like I deserve this. And he said, look, I've got veterans from World War II that are coming in saying, all of a sudden, after all these years, all of a sudden I'm having nightmares. Don't know where it came from. I haven't had nightmares this entire time. Because that was also my argument. I'm like, how come I didn't have any nightmares until I got into the car accident at the sheriff's department? We were in a high-speed chase, ended in a collision, ended up with some brain damage. And that's when I started having the nightmares. And that's what triggered the post-traumatic stress. And what I found is that when stress is too much for your brain, it's like getting a concussion. A lot of times in concussions, when your brain slams against the side of the skull, there's a short circuit in there that says, okay, something bad just happened. I need to go to sleep. I need time to repair. That's why you get knocked out. Like, we think getting knocked out is, I don't know what people think it is, but it's your brain's way of saying, hey, something bad just happened and I need to heal, so I need to shut off. That's what being knocked out is all about. And so when you have a severe head trauma and you get knocked out, your brain is checked out. Well, then when all this stress comes to the surface, the brain says, hey, we need to deal with this, but we don't have the tools to do it, so we're going to check out, right? But yet we're still awake. So it's almost like we're on autopilot. So if you feel like when you wake up, like you're still asleep and you're just living in a dream, that is called derealization. And it can have a massive impact because you feel groggy, you feel achy, you don't feel right in the head. When I'm in derealization, when I'm in that mode, like if I've had nightmares or whatnot, and I wake up and I feel like that, I can't make good decisions. And for me, it gets so bad that sometimes my words slur. So I fight to find words to say, which is another reason why I don't post videos all the time, because sometimes I'm in derealization and I can't put sentence together properly. It's like my brain is just checked out for a little bit of time. Now, I will tell you, if I grab a bite to eat, if I maybe lay down for a little bit, go for a run, go hit the gym, go work out, I snap back too. But I wouldn't have known to do that stuff had I not learned that this is a real deal. So for those of you out there that are dealing with heavy amounts of stress, especially in this day and age with everything going on, like police officers are under the microscope right now. You guys have a lot of stress on you. And the truth is that if some of these things like derealization are happening, how in the world can you handle your dog the same way when this is all subconscious? Like, you can't control this. This is nothing that you can just say, oh, well, I'm in derealization, I'm going to snap out of it like that. It's not a possibility. You've got to learn about it, and you've got to learn the tools and what your body needs to get your brain out of that slump. We know that anyone in depersonalization, derealization, or any type of disassociation or dissociation, they actually both mean the same thing. You're not going to be the same. You're not going to behave the same. And this can be confusing for your canine partner, right? Your dog is going to say, hey, why are you acting differently? And we could see a shift in the behavior, which can impact the dog's, not reliability, because most of you have worked really hard and your dog is definitely reliable. It's just during those times your dog, it creates confusion. And you might see a deterioration in your dog's work, but that doesn't mean that they're not reliable. Like, I hate that certain defense attorneys will use words like that. Well, hey, I saw this video and maybe you were in derealization. Let's come on now. We're not trying to use this to throw you guys and gals under the bus, because the dog still has a consistent history of being reliable and effective out on real life deployments. So I don't want to see this to be used as an argument, but not talking about it can actually create more damage than talking about it. So I think that people need to be enlightened. I think handlers need to understand that loads of stress, whether you like it or not, it's gonna have an impact on you in some form or fashion. And in my case, it's derealization, right? Which I read to you what the criteria was for that, or what you feel like. You feel like you're detached from your surroundings. So I think that this is something that needs to be talked about more. There's a few people out there that are, advocates for law enforcement, military, struggling with post-traumatic stress and other disorders, who are trying to get people to talk about it more. And I want to get on that bandwagon simply because of my own struggles and some of the other veterans that I talked to. I've got a really good friend of mine. He called me over the weekend. He was struggling. He was a canine handler, multiple deployments. And, we talked, we bounced things off of each other, and we're there for each other. We provide support for each other. So it's nice to have somebody that I can go to that gets it. That's the other thing. Talking to people that don't get it. Talking to people that haven't been around dead bodies and all kinds of other stuff, and explosions and gunfire and all that other stuff. That doesn't help me, because I know it's an impossibility for them to understand me. But when I talk to somebody who has been on the front lines, whether it's law enforcement or whether it's military, I know that they get it. It's a matter of whether or not they're going to admit that they have a problem. Now, some of you are probably watching this and say, yeah, I really don't have a problem. I'm not looking for anybody to make something up either. I'm not asking you to sit there and try to find a way that you're struggling. That's not it. Either you have it or you don't, and that's fine. If you're watching and you're not struggling with any of this stuff, at least soak in the information so that you can help identify this in one of your comrades, and then sit down and have a chat with them and say, hey, look, I've noticed there's times where it's almost like you're not who you are. And let me tell you, my wife, she knows when I'm struggling, because I get very quiet, and it's almost like I zone out. It's like, I'm listening to her, but it's almost like what she has referred to as, it's like my eyes are very empty, like there's no soul. And that's that detaching from reality, because my brain is overloaded with all these stressors and indicators. So, it's a very important topic to talk about, and I hope that those of you watching this, I hope that you take it seriously, because I really think that this is a big deal. Most of the time when I help people out with their dog problems, which is what my job is, I don't train the dog from start to finish anymore. People hire me to step in and fix their problems, which we do very, very well. One of the things that we talk about is individual stress and anxiety. Are there times where you're more stressed or not? And is there a correlation with your dog's problem? whatever the problem is. 9 times out of 10, sometimes the dog is what was the icing on the cake. So like maybe, for example, you're pulling double shifts. The double shift has caused a strain on your relationship, and your dog sensed that. So now your dog says, hey, I've seen you stressed out over here, and you're holding it together the best you can. But then the dog says, hey, I don't know what to make of this. I notice you're stressed out. I don't know how to fix it. I don't know what I can do. And so then the dog begins to have these little outbursts, which is the icing on the cake. And that's when a lot of handlers crack, right? They don't realize they're doing this, but they might overcorrect their dog because they have all this pent up anxiety and frustration, and they overcorrect their dog. So then they make matters worse. Now you lose a little bit of trust that your dog had for you. And so you're really taking 10 steps backwards because nobody's talking about the powerful impact of stress and anxiety on us human beings, right? You know, I know a lot of guys and gals that I served with. I was a scout sniper in the Corps. Some of the guys that I served with went on to like force recon, multiple deployments, and like these are some tough dudes, man. I mean, tough guys. I know SEALs, I know Delta guys. We're all dealing with the same thing, and all of us did not want to admit that we're not disciplined or powerful enough to deal with what's happening in our brain. It really is a tough thing to do, but when I finally just reached down and grabbed a hold and I said, no, I need to acknowledge this, that's when I started getting better. That's when I started finding healing, is having discussions about this and actually digging into what is it, what are the symptoms, can I recognize them, and then can I come up with a plan of action when I'm in those times? And the truth is, I knew everything about it, but I didn't have the tools. That's where my therapist came in, and she's giving me tools to be able to manage this and make me better at what I do, which is teaching everybody about dog psychology, teaching people about the human psychological impacts that on a dog. So yeah, I really think this is an important topic. So if any of this applies to you, I would highly recommend that you reach out, maybe get some therapy on the side. And you know, that brings up another quick topic. When you're looking for therapists, my therapist is very proactive. For example, if I'm telling a story and she hears something, she'll be like, stop. Hold on. You said this here. Let's stay there. Let's investigate this. Like, she owns it. I've been to therapists before where all I do is I go in, I spill my guts, and there's no solution. There's no explanation. It's like they're only there just to listen. That's not what I need. Most of us, that's not what we need. We need somebody to say, oh, what you're dealing with is derealization disorder. This is what it means. This is what you're experiencing. You just told me this is what you're experiencing, and this is the definition of this. Do you feel that applies to you? Well, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Okay, here's been the proven techniques to cope with this. What do you want to try first? And then I get to pick. Hey, let me try tapping, or let me try this, or let me try that. And then my therapist and I weed through the solutions until I find something that works for me, because everyone's brain is different. You don't have to publicize it. You can go see, there's plenty of nonprofit therapy people out there that go by income. I was seeing a therapist outside of VA, and it was like $20 every time I went in compared to the normal $50. And so it was very helpful because I didn't have a ton of money. So to spend $20 and save 30, it was very helpful, and I was able to get some additional help. So there are solutions out there if you're concerned about being alienated or thrown under the bus. But I think that we all should also take time to unplug. Unplug, get away from social media, get away from the chaos, get away from the negativity. Just unplug and start enjoying the finer, smaller things in life. For example, waking up and seeing your partner in bed next to you and stopping for a moment, saying, man, I'm really thankful for this, instead of, oh crap, man, I got to go to work, I got to get this done, got to get that done, got to get this done. By the time you throw the covers off, spin around, plant your feet on the ground, you're already in a state of stress and anxiety. And you're completely missing that somebody took the time to be with you. Like, it's stopping to see those things, or being thankful that I have a fridge full of food. That's something that I've learned in this. How many times we go to the refrigerator and we just open it up, we grab what we want, but we don't stop and think, wow, look at all this food I have in here. It's being thankful for those little things, and that does something to the brain. When you think of positive things, there's a shift in the brain. And to be able to do that more and more and more is what provides a lot of healing for a lot of people. And I can attest to this from personal experiences. So I'll get off my soapbox for the day, but I hope this has been helpful for you. Stress and anxiety will have a massive impact on your canine. So learn about it, identify the signs and symptoms, and by all means, if you need help, reach out. Feel free to call me. My cell phone is 260-466-8929. Call, man. I love helping people. I love talking to people that feel like they can't talk to anybody else. I get a lot of phone calls that they're not even dog related. They're like, hey man, your video really spoke to me. I've been really struggling and I need someone to talk to and I don't know who. So because you put it out there, I'm calling you. So by all means, call if you need. Until next time, stay safe, watch your six, and as always, Semper Fi.